Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. And I hope everybody's had a great week this week. Man, it's been chilly. I think yesterday and the day before it's been negative 15 where I live here in Nikiski, Alaska. And man, that is cold. I went to go start my car yesterday, and the thing wouldn't start. I had to call somebody with one of those battery jumpers. I tried the trickle charger and it was just too dang cold, and the cold succumbed my SUV, sadly, but we did get it started yesterday. And for those of you that tuned in last week, in the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of shows in the last couple of weeks. We're almost to our 300th episode. I think next week we'll hit our number 300. We've been doing this now for just about 3 years, the show, and it's been just a treasure to do for all of our listeners, watchers, and readers. If you want to help keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska, just go to mustreadalaska.com, and on the right-hand side there's a little donate button. Every $5, $10, $100 helps. We're not funded by some dark web money nonprofit conglomerate like most of the news places are here in Alaska. We are funded by everyday Alaskans that just care about conservative news. So we want to thank folks that do help keep the lights on. But without further ado, I have a very special guest today that everybody will get to know, and everybody will probably go buy a couple of hoodies after this episode. RJ, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show.
Yeah, man. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
So excited you're on. So tell us a little bit. We're gonna get into kind of get into your whole life story through a series of my questions. But let's start it off by telling folks a little bit about how the heck you were in a couple movies a number of years ago. I think that story's fascinating. Yeah. I just got done watching your TED Talk this morning, and man, you've had quite the illustrious life. So tell folks a little bit about that story, about how you ended up in a couple of cool movies. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. So back in my early 20s, when I started to do all of this to myself, the tattoo thing here, I noticed that, nowadays it's kind of a trendy thing. You see a lot of people nowadays walk around with like a couple face tattoos here and there. But, I'm 34 now. I was in my early 20s when I did this. So it wasn't like a common thing back then. Usually back then it meant you were in a gang or what, just absolutely out of your mind. So I noticed that I had something that a lot of people didn't have. I had a unique look, and I had just kind of wanted to turn my life around. Like I was kind of, living kind of a violent lifestyle. I was convicted felon by the time I was 21 in 2 different countries. And I'm like, you know what, like I can't do this anymore. Like I gotta use my quote unquote disadvantages to my advantage. And if you watch the TEDx, it was called, Bridges Over Barriers. And how can I use things in my life to help catapult me into a new life that would normally be used against me? And how can I use them for me? One of the things obviously back then was, you look the way I do, getting into, print. So like photography or modeling, music videos, movies. And there's this website, I think it might even still be out there to this day, called Actors Access. You pay like $5 to be on this website. You can upload a couple of headshots or whatever. And I legitimately found on there. And at the time I was doing some MMA fighting. So I was doing some training. And they were looking for extras to be in like some gym scenes of this movie that I was going to film in Pittsburgh. I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania, so Pittsburgh is only about a 2-hour drive from us, 2 hours south. It's like, oh yeah, and I'll give this a try. It was like a 2-day shoot, paid $100 for 12 hours, whatever it was. We'll give it a try. And when you sign up for these roles or these gigs, they don't really tell you like hey, it's this production company filming this movie. It's like, here's the working title, and you have no idea what you're getting into until you get here, right? So when I sent my stuff and they contacted me immediately, they're like, we definitely want you in. Here's what you're going to be doing. Show up next week on this date or whatever. So I show up that day, and I'm in line, and I'm with like 50 other people. I'm like, oh man, like this is one of those things where I'm just going to be like the little guy in the background no one's going to ever see. I'm standing there in line, and I was pulled away right away, and they're like, you come with us. And I'm like, am I getting like, do I look too crazy? Like, am I already getting kicked off set? Like, what happened? And they're like, we actually want to know if you want to be one of our main actors, one of the fighters in the movie, like an entourage guy with them throughout the movie. I'm like, yeah, well, what does that entail? They're like, well, we're probably gonna need you for filming for like a month and a half in Pittsburgh. And I'm like, okay, all right. So we're kind of talking a little bit bigger than just like a 2-day shoot. And we had realized at the time that this would be a movie through Lionsgate Films called Warrior. And I said, yeah, sure. So my guy, his name, his acting name in the movie was Mad Dog Grimes, but his name's Eric Apple. He's a professional MMA fighter. And in the very first scene that day, I've never done any acting. I don't know what's going on. Some guy 14 years ago named Tom Hardy came in. No clue who this guy was. He wasn't who he is now. And, we were filming the gym scene. And if you watch the movie Warrior, that's the movie that this was. It's the gym scene where Tom Hardy tunes my guy up. And I had multiple conversations with Tom Hardy through the day. And he's like telling me about like this movie he's going to get into. And then, this Charles Bronson or something like that, some other movie he did. And I'm like, this guy's just making stuff up. Like this, I've never heard of this guy in my life. And now here we are 14 years later. And it's like, he's one of the biggest actors out there, which is awesome. So I ended up kind of staying in Pittsburgh for about a month and a half. Came home, I think, on Sundays, went back down, stayed down there for a week, and did the filming that I had to do. And in the movie industry, they film you in 100 different scenes, and by the time it actually makes the movie, you're in like 3 of them. And that's kind of what this was. But the cool thing was like during my last week or 2 on set, I was pulled aside again, and they're like, hey, the marketing director for Lionsgate Films is here. And they were looking at from some still shots that they take during the filming process. And they're like, who's this freaking maniac looking guy? They're like, oh, just some extra from Erie, Pennsylvania, whatever. Well, his name's Tim Palin, and he's the marketing director for Lionsgate, but he also does professional photography. So he had this concept where he wanted to create basically a coffee table photography book called The Men of Warrior. And it would have the 4 biggest actors in the movie: Tom Hardy, Joel Egerton, who's now a huge name actor, Nate Marquardt, he's a UFC fighter, then my fighter, Eric Apple. And then they wanted just this background extra because I had face tattoos in the book. So I had the privilege of doing that, photograph for this big book. It's in stores, online, all that stuff. And then a couple years later, when the movie was finally getting ready to release, they contacted me and said, hey, well, because you did this, this, and this, and you're so recognizable in the movie and you did the photography book, we want to invite you out to the red carpet premiere. And I'm like, my mind's blowing up. I'm like, how the hell did I go from being like a 1-day casting guy to be in a gym scene to now they're flying me out to Hollywood to be able to walk the red carpet and hang out with these people? So that was definitely an experience. So I did that. That was called Warrior. Same website. I sent something in for a music video. Had no idea who it was for. They called me 2 days later and they're like, oh yeah, we need you to come out to Staten Island next weekend for this music video. It's for Jay-Z. I'm like, what in the hell is happening right now? And this was just like a couple months, I think, after I was filming the movie stuff. So that's when I realized, like, okay, you know what? Like, there's this niche market that I fit into, that there's not a lot of people out there who are looking to do stuff like this. Again, because a lot of people that look like me were, gang affiliated or whatever it was, where like they're not thinking, hey, how can I actually do business and make something out of my life looking the way I do? So yeah, I was in a Jay-Z music video. We filmed that. It was a one night shoot in Staten Island in New York. Jay-Z, Rihanna, and Kanye West. That was a music video called Run This Town. So that was fun.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, I kind of did that stuff for a couple of years. I did some smaller budget stuff. But I haven't really gotten anything lately. I went out to Pittsburgh again, actually, a couple months ago to film for a 1-day shoot for that TV show called Mayor of Kingstown.
Oh man,
Um,
that show is awesome. I don't know if you've seen it. I mean,
yeah,
you're obviously on it now, but I don't know if you've seen it. It's pretty cool.
yeah, I was a huge fan of it. That's the only reason why I signed up to go out there for it. So I went out there for a day. Again, I don't know if I'm going to make any of the cuts. Probably not, but it's in season 2 that's airing now. So yeah, I try and do some of that when I can, if I have free time. And it's one of those things where it's like you either have to fit the role exactly, like they're looking for a gang member or a prisoner or something like that, right?
Yep.
Or I don't get involved. So
So you had some success. You come back and you start your own clothing company. Tell me the story about how you started your own clothing company, and maybe some of what does that look like for people out there are going to listen and they want to start their own clothing company. So what was that like for you?
right. I first start off by saying, and I always say this, I speak at a lot of schools. I've even spoken in prison since like the shows come out and stuff like that. It's hard for me to give advice to startup because I didn't start it to be a business. I literally started as a hobby. So I literally go into these schools or wherever a business, and I'm saying like, I can't really give you advice on how to start a business because I didn't do it to start a business. I did it as a hobby, and I somehow, closed my eyes, and 7 years later, I'm here now, right? Um, but it was basically, I wanted to do a hobby, or have a hobby. I had just gotten married at the time, bought a house with my ex-wife, and was ready to kind of quote unquote settle down. And I was always interested in the clothing industry. I toured with some bands for some years before that, so I was in charge of like getting merch printed, our merch that we would take on tour or go to shows. So I came with the name, came up with the logo, the concept, and I literally started it was back in 2015, right out of my house. I started with $300.
Nice.
I bought as much clothing as I possibly could with $300, put it online, sold out in a week and a half, flipped that 300. Now I'm sitting on 700, ordered as much inventory as I can with 700. I kept doing that for the first couple of months until I'm, just, making, thousands of dollars off this clothing line that was never supposed to be really anything serious. Um, Kind of learned as I went along. Didn't really take out any loans, kind of bootstrapped it for the first couple of years. And by the end of the first year, I was actually in my first brick and mortar. It was a store that was attached to a tattoo shop, surprisingly.
Nice.
And I took that over, opened that up at the end of my first year in 2015. And then it was a few months after that where I realized that I was kind of onto something. And for me to continue to take it to the next level, I was going to have to give up my full-time job. Because again, going into this, I was a convicted felon in 2 countries, shouldn't have any good jobs. I shouldn't be able to do anything with my life. And I got lucky enough to get a job, my foot in the door with the city of Erie, in their public works department as a refuse driver carrier, so a garbage man basically. And worked my ass off for a couple of years, and I ended up getting offered a full-time position. So at the time of 2015, when I did this, I was making really good money. I was
Yeah.
pension, benefits, health insurance, a
You
city
were set.
job.
You could do that job for
I
the
was
next
set.
30,
Yep.
40 years and
And
be
I was only
retire
like
with $1 million in your account.
right. Yeah. I was like 25 years old. I was young, already had years in full time. And so when I started this business or the clothing line at my house, I didn't even know what the word entrepreneurship even meant, right? Like I wasn't in the entrepreneurship scene. I didn't know what all that was. I didn't have connections or know anyone. So I was kind of just figuring out things on my own. And again, going into April of 2016, so basically a year after I started this hobby out of my house, I decided to throw in the towel with the city. I technically I retired. That's what we had to call it because
Nice.
I pulled my pension, I pulled all that stuff, and went full time with the company. And it's been an adventure ever since.
So in most people's lives, when they make that, there's going to be a point if they have a side hustle to eventually decide, should I quit my full-time gig to do the thing that I'm really passionate about?
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about that and what that was like for you. That moment you decided to jump all in with your clothing company. Describe that for us.
Yeah. So for me, how that worked, I I didn't really know how to go about it. Right. Like I had a business mentor at the time, and she was awesome for me in the beginning, helped me get started, and I could go to her for advice or whatever. Who she was kind of in the entrepreneurial scene. She had helped mentor some other people and stuff like that. And I said, I just feel like I'm a candle burning at both ends, right? Like I'm one person. One side of me, I'm doing my business or clothing line. The other side of me, I have to work 40 hours a week plus some in the winter, doing the plowing and stuff that I did for the city at the time. And I tried to last out as long as I could working with the city. And I said to her, I'm like, when do I know that it's the right time to do this? And she said, you'll never know. You'll never know when the right time is. If you want to wait for the right time, you're going to be waiting forever because there's never the right time to do that. And it made absolute sense. Like for me, it just got to the point, and the best advice that I could give is when you feel like your business, like if you have a full-time hustle and you have your side hustle, right? If you know that your side hustle can grow and keep going, but you're just not capable of putting any more time or energy or effort into it because you have this 9 to 5 or whatever this career is over here, and you want it to grow, that's when you got to start making some decisions, right? Because if not, you're going to stay at this level for how long, and you might miss that one chance or opportunity. I sound like Eminem over here. Miss your chance, your one shot or whatever. But if you don't take advantage of it while you have that passion, have that hunger to grow that, and a year from now, you might have lost that opportunity, right? So for me, it was the right time, even though there is no right time, right? And I just said, you know what, I'm not going to think about it any longer. I don't even know if I can financially make it work, but we're going to give it a try, right? Yeah. Because if I don't do it, I'll never know if it would have worked.
So one day you're minding your own business, you're running your clothing companies, you're, doing your own social media stuff, and a film crew and a guy named Glenn Stern walks into your city. Tell me about that experience of being a part of a very impactful kind of undercover reality TV show called Undercover Billionaire. Tell me about that experience of being on it before you even knew kind of what it was.
So yeah, the backstory, the reality behind the reality show, right? Is that production company contacted me a year before they started doing this filming. But how it happened was it was through an email, and they said, hey, we're a production company from California, and Erie is one of a few cities that we're scouting right now to film a documentary called The American Dream. It's about this guy named Glenn Bryant, blah, blah, blah. Gave me a whole pitch backstory to this Glenn Bryant guy. And they basically want to film a documentary of him going to a city and being able to help him start a business from the ground up. And they said, do you mind getting on a phone call? So I got on a phone call with them. Her name was Melinda. And she was awesome. And she said, this is what we're doing. If we come to Erie, do you mind if we show up at your store and kind of ask you some questions and interview? I said, yeah, sure. Like, count me in. Let me know. This is a year before filming. So we're in contact back and forth a little bit over a couple months. I'm like, I think I might have just got scammed somehow because they're not coming here. I'm not really hearing back anymore. Like, did I give them my card information? Like, I can't remember if I gave them anything. And I even looked up the production company. They seemed legit online. And it was towards the end of the year where I finally got a call back or a response finally. And they said, Glenn's health kind of took a hit and he had to figure that out. But we do plan on coming within the next couple of months to begin the filming for the documentary. And we'll let you know. We're going to come first. We're going to come meet you, come check out your store, whatever. And I'm not trying to ruin the show. This is obviously how it had to happen. But there were a lot of how it did happen. And it was reality though, and not set up. So they come here, they interview me. They say, we got your name from the local film office here. We said we're looking for local entrepreneurs and business owners. We love your story. We think that you and Glenn would be a great fit together. Do you think that the day that Glenn makes it to Erie, he's going to need a job? Do you think that you could help him out? And I said, well, I don't know the guy. I'm not going to say yes, but I'm not going to say no. When you guys get here, we'll see if I'm hiring or can use some help. Great. If not, I was not going to pay this guy that I don't know to do a job for me that I don't need to pay him for. So that's how that all happened.
Nice.
So it was a couple months down the road. Yeah, I get the call and say, hey, he's looking for a job, and we saw that, you had this ad, out there hiring, and kind of the rest was history. So that's kind of how I met, quote unquote, Glenn Bryant.
Nice. So he lands, and then you guys are obviously getting to know each other for the first time, and how you interact and how you can, all that is probably, for the most part, they're catching, and that's you actually interacting with him, getting to know him for the first time. So tell me about that experience, because if somebody goes back and watches Undercover Billionaire, it is quite fascinating to see. It's a good depiction of just people interacting with each other for the first time, being willing to kind of lend an olive branch. So tell me about some of those learnings that you had while you were being filmed for what was probably weeks and weeks at a time.
Yeah, so I mean, my first interaction with Glenn was super comfortable. I wasn't sure how to take it. Obviously I knew, after he had called about the job, and I said, yeah, come on in. I knew there was going to be, a documentary being filmed. I knew a film crew was going to show up. I didn't know to that extent though. When they walked into my store, like you can actually see me looking. I'm like, okay, like you told me documentary. I'm thinking like a little handheld, like VHS camera. They've got like 5 guys with like movie film cameras on their shoulders, APs or PAs or whatever. And I'm like, what is happening? So again, like we knew that we're being filmed. We knew it was a documentary. We just didn't know what the hell was really going on. Right.
Yeah.
So I hired him, and him and I clicked instantly. We linked, and we had a lot of personal time off camera that we got to spend together. That obviously didn't make it, where him and I just, we chatted, we bonded. There's a lot of links that were like, wait a second, like you do this, well, this is something I do. Now keep in mind that I just think that this guy's some 54-year-old guy who is just looking to start a business for the first time
or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we have like all these little mutual kind of weird kinks and connections together, and I don't know who he is the whole time, and I'm glad I didn't. People ask me all the time, they're like, well, would you have treated him differently? I'm like, I don't know if I would have treated him differently, but I'm glad that he got the real side of me, and I got to meet a side of him that he doesn't get to portray a lot in his life, because of who he is out there. Yeah. And during the show, there's even an interview where he says, he's like, I have to question people's, their integrity behind why they want to talk to me, right? Because they know I have money. Like, do they just want to be my friend because I have money, or do they really want to be my friend?
Yeah, everybody has an angle probably when they get to know him.
Right.
So did you, when he actually said, who he was really, if people watch the show, it looks like you're going to punch him in the throat.
Yeah.
Was that upsetting when he actually had to tell you, okay, I'm actually not this dude, I'm a billionaire guy?
I wouldn't say that I was upset. I think that for me, it was one of those things where like some of us had our questions, like, who is this guy? Like things kind of seemed off a little bit here and there, but we were so far into the point where it was like, they could have told us anything and we wouldn't have been like, oh, we got, gypped, or we got, tricked on, because like we had so much already into it, right? Yeah. Blood, sweat, and tears into this project of whatever it was, where they could have told us anything and we'd have been like, well, that's not going to change what we just did. So like, now what? Right.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that though. I definitely wasn't expecting that outcome. I think more so I was shocked that I didn't know. Like I was like, I could usually pick up things and people and stuff like that. So I was kind of just more so shocked, I think, with my reaction. A lot of people asked me about that. Your reaction seemed like you were like upset or angry, and I think I was just like still in shock, trying to like let that sink in, what he just told everyone.
Yeah. So what was your biggest takeaway from it? Besides, you probably got a new person that you call your friend in Glenn.
Yeah.
What was some of your, one of your biggest takeaways from the experience?
Oh, God, there's so many of them. And to be honest, what a lot of people don't know is off camera. So keep in mind, even when he told us that at the end who he was, and then we finished the show out, the restaurant opens. At that time, we didn't know that it was a TV show, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like he revealed them to him, but he didn't say, "Oh, also this is for Discovery," right? We're still thinking this is just some documentary, might be on Netflix, whatever it is. It actually wasn't until literally 2 months before the show even aired on TV. It was like a month or two after they left, and they have every single one of us get on this conference call with the production company. They're like, "Oh, by the way, we got some exciting news. This is a show for Discovery Channel, and by the way, it's going to air in a month and a half on national TV. So you guys got to prepare yourselves for what it's about to happen."
By the way, you're going to have, you're going to have a fan club in about a month and a half.
Yes, yeah, and then they're like, "RJ, we also need you to call us after this," and I'm like, "Oh my god, here we go." And so that phone call, they had me come out to the I think they call it the Television Critics Association, like the TCA or something like that, where basically, every main national channel or network or whatever, they have their own where, hey, these are our new shows we're going to be broadcasting in the next season coming up, blah, blah, blah. So I got to get on a panel with Glenn, the producers, the director, stuff like that, and do like this live panel thing, which is pretty cool for the show. But again, what a lot of people don't know is while he was still here after we finished filming this documentary, I found out who he was. I know who he is now. So now we can actually start having real conversations. Like, okay, so tell me about some of your life that you weren't able to tell me before, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I had my 30-second Shark Tank pitch to him. I said, all right, here's the deal. And I drove to my parking lot I'm actually just a few weeks ago, I closed that location down. But this location I was looking at, I wanted to open and grow my business. And I drove him on purpose into the parking lot there. I'm like, that location right there. I'm like, I really want to grow the business. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Here's some financials. Now that I know who you are and you can actually really help me out instead of just, stroking me a check at the end of the show, which I actually did. I got in trouble because I wasn't taking a check. Even after I finally said yes and took it from him for the camera, after it, I tried to get back. I'm like, I can't take the check. I'm not going to do this. And he yelled at me. He's like, no, you're going to take the goddamn check. He's like, that's the least I can do for you right now. But I said, are you willing to help me? As a partner or whatever it is. And I hand him my financials. He opens it up for 3 seconds. He's like, we can make something work. So he's actually partners with me on Iron Empire since that day.
That's awesome.
And he helped me open up that store, helped me grow the business significantly over the last few years. I've been out to California multiple times. He's let me stay at his guest house. That's, is considered a mansion where I'm from. One of the most humble guys that you'll ever meet. And it's funny because people always ask me, well, is he as nice and humble as he in real life as he is on the show, thinking it's a front? And I'm actually he's actually more nice and humble off air because I feel like he needs not that he's got to fake it for the TV show or for the cameras, but you've got to fit that image, right? But off air, it's we would go to restaurants in California or whatever it is, just sitting there, minding his own business. He's not, flashing his money around, not doing this, not doing that. Just one of the most humble and nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Well, it sounds like you got a good friend from the experience, which, man, if that's worth its weight in gold, no matter how much money that person has. Especially, as I get older, having friends that will have your back no matter what. I mean, that's something that does not come often in this world. So that's pretty awesome that you were able to at least get that from the show. And sounds like your business is growing. So what's next for you? You got your own clothing company. It sounds like your business is growing. What's next on the docket for you?
Man. So as far as Iron Empire goes, I just had to minimize some locations, trying to go through a regrowth process and then some condensing some stuff. So right now I'm currently in my mall location where we sell a retail store, a retail brand, and then we do our screen printing. So I do screen printing for other companies or whatever it is. We're getting ready to open up a new location here in our mall to move out of here because we kind of closed that store and kind of condensed us all up in this location. It's just we don't have enough space. So hopefully within the next few weeks, I'll be in another store here for Iron Empire, do some renovations, get that open. And that's kind of nobody really knows about that yet. I haven't even announced that. And then this year I'm working on 2 other projects. Really don't want to put too much out there yet. But one is affiliated with Iron Empire, but not in the clothing industry. But it'll be branded as Iron Empire. And then another thing is just a completely off the wall idea that I had and brought it to some people, and it's actually sounds like it's a pretty promising, business idea. So I'd like to hopefully have that launched and something going here within the next few months as well.
Nice. So how can somebody find your clothing company? Give us the websites and the Facebooks and the social media. There's going to be people
Oh man,
here that
yeah.
are like, I got to go find this guy's clothing. This guy sounds like the most epic person I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my God. I don't know about that. But yeah, you can go to just ironempireclothing.com. You can purchase any of our stuff off that website. I have another brand that I started last year called Valley of Dreams. It's kind of like under the Iron Empire umbrella, just a new face to what we do. It's not Iron Empire. It's a different brand, but it's under the same entity. So it's just a new look, new feel of some different clothing. Find me on Instagram, and I post a lot more of my personal. I don't post too much business on from my page, but that's at RJ underscore Iron Empire, my Instagram. I've got YouTube channel out there. I don't really do much with that anymore, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff on that. Like if you were watching this and you saw the show, we talk a lot about the underdog stuff and behind the scenes. I have like a little video behind the scenes blog going, or vlog, or whatever you call it. There's like 20 some episodes over the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, you can
Nice.
find us pretty much anywhere.
Well, for folks that are listening, we're going to do a fun little giveaway. If somebody that's listening to this podcast on our Facebook post, we'll pin it to the top of the page. If they like, comment, share, or tag a friend, you can enter to win a $25 gift card to Empire Clothing. And so you could do all those and have 5 entries for all I care. So feel free to like, comment, share, and tag a friend in this Facebook post as you're listening to the show, and you can enter to win a $25 gift card. Literally put all the names in a hat.
Awesome.
And draw somebody. So RJ, any last minute things before we head off here?
No, man, just thanks for having me on. I know we were talking before this, but you've been trying to get me on this. I feel like since the show came out, and I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. And then my life is just an absolute mess, so it never happened. So I'm glad we were able to finally do it. And I'll be letting you know when I'm ready to come out there.
Awesome. Well, we wish you nothing but jacket.
I'm ready.
I love it. We wish you nothing but success here at Must Read Alaska. And this is a great story of being an entrepreneur here in the US and being successful and going through the ups and downs and the valleys and the peaks. And so for folks that are listening and maybe they only caught the last 10 minutes or so, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the whole thing. And you will get a really awesome picture of what it looks like to be an entrepreneur and be successful and take some risks along the way. We'll put RJ's links into the podcast description, as well as the link to the very wildly popular show that he was on for entrepreneurs called Undercover Billionaire. So RJ, we wish you nothing but success. Until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska.
Thank you.